Good morning. I'm Lulu Cook. My channel is Dharma Dish. I'm coming to you from my patio outside in our beautiful flat here in Brisbane, Australia. You can see the gorgeous mock orange tree behind me, which might try to attack while I film this. You know, the first videos I posted were a few years ago when I was talking about being the then partner of a trans person, a person who had decided to go through gender transition. And it was hard. It was agonizing for me. The changes that they were going through, the ways I didn't recognize them anymore, their uncertainty about their commitment to me. It was hard. And while I wanted to support them, I didn't find a lot of resources out there that were speaking to what my journey and process was as the partner. So I filmed a few videos about what that was like for me, and I put them up on YouTube and moved on and did other things in my life. But through the years, you know, it's been a handful of years now, and I continue to have people find those videos and watch them and send some really heartfelt messages about maybe where they're at in similar situations, being the partners of people who are going through gender transition and how alone they feel. So I've left those videos up. I'm really honored to get to offer anything that might help somebody going through that feel less alone. And I thought it might be time to post a little update. So the big spoiler, what happened? The big spoiler is my then partner and I did not make it through that process as a couple. The size of the changes he was going through, somebody's hammering something I just hear starting up, so sorry about that. Ambient banging. Yeah, so we didn't make it. The changes he was going through were too big, and he really needed to be able to focus more on his own process at that time, and just didn't have the bandwidth to know what he'd like to have happen between our relationship. Oh, that's annoying. And while it took a while, you know, he didn't say, oh, I don't love you anymore, I don't want to be with you. What he said is, I don't know. You know, my journey is so full with what I'm going through and my personal transition. I don't know where you fall in that, Lulu. And after a while, I decided I didn't want to hang out and keep waiting and wondering. I wanted a partner who was fully into me and fully committed and into that journey of relationship together. And he just was not able to do that at the time for reasons that make total sense. You know, he was on this huge roller coaster ride of his own journey. So we parted ways relatively amicably, although there were some tense moments, as with any breakup, some nasty texts and squabbles about money, that kind of thing. But overall, it was really amicable. And now, a few years later, we're still friendly. We don't talk much or see each other. I live on the other side of the world from him. But it's a friendly feeling, and one where I just have a lot of appreciation for that relationship, for the lessons I learned in it that have nothing to do with gender transition, and also the things I learned that were uniquely and specifically because of his decision to transition. The amount of respect I have for the courage that took and must take for others who continue to begin that journey. Huge amount of courage and respect for that commitment to truth and authenticity for themselves, even at sometimes really huge cost. My ex had to be willing to hear his own clarity and his own voice, and to trust that enough to be willing to give up a lot and to risk giving up a lot. A good relationship and a comfortable, wonderful home, and the other things that changed and that he had to let go of in order to allow this new thing to arise. Really profound lesson for me in radical letting go and radical self-trust and authenticity. So I appreciate that, and appreciate that I got to be a witness to it, sometimes a cheerleader for that process, and a lot of times maybe not making that process easier because I was trying so hard to hold on to something that worked for me and that I was comfortable with. One of the lessons I take forward from that path is that I continue to feel really passionate about this idea that trans people are some of the most courageous people in our world. That willingness to step so totally off the accepted path. These are your choices. This is what everybody does for humanity forevermore. Period. Amen. Male or female. And you're born that way. To be willing to step off of that, these are deeply courageous people, and I'm a huge ally for them. I'm glad that their presence and voice has been amplified in some ways in recent years. I look particularly at the health side. I'm a dietitian and nutritionist. I look at the health side and would love to see more data coming out, particularly around the impacts on nutrition of these hormonal changes that somebody on transition hormones might be undergoing. A lot of body change, obviously, and I don't think there's much out there about nutrition. I haven't found much about the nutrition side of that, so just a ton of ways still ahead waiting for us to be able to support these people better. So yeah, we went in different directions, and sending much love back to the Bay Area, to him. And meanwhile, I'm in Australia with the most wonderful partner I've had in this life and hope to continue to be with. She was actually a dear friend of mine throughout that whole process of change, and the process of leaving my other ex. And it turns out there's really something to this trick about this thing they say about, oh, it's really good to be friends first. Oh, that's been true in our case. I feel really fortunate and blessed by this new relationship and new opportunity to learn with someone who is equally committed to it as I am. I'm building on my own business here in Australia, working as a nutritionist and health coach. I teach meditation regularly at the Buddhist Heart Insight group here in town, and feel very, very fortunate to have found a community here. It was really hard leaving my Sangha in California, my Buddhist community there, but to have found another spiritual home here with people who are equally dedicated to making the Buddha's teachings foundational in our lives and part of our path to freedom from suffering. Good to surround myself with good people who keep in focus Dharma teachings like the one around impermanence, and that everything that arises will pass. This is one of the things the Buddha taught about repeatedly through 40 years of walking around northern India and teaching, was this idea of fundamental impermanence, which can both be really scary, like it was for me when my past partnership was dissolving. I just wanted to hold on and make it last and make it stay and make it be the way I wanted it to, and it couldn't do that. It was falling apart. It was impermanent. So it can be scary, and that impermanence can be really beautiful. It means tough situations eventually come to an end, and it means that something new and fresh and maybe even better has the space now to arise. So living from a place of cultivating more ease with that impermanence has been called for in the past handful of years with all those changes. So I'm wishing that for you, wishing that you're able to find some comfort and ease with any of the transformations or transitions you might be going through. Yeah, wishing well for you, and eager to hear how any of you are traveling in your journey. If you're watching this because you are in the midst of a transition of a partner or loved one that is really impacting you, I'd love to hear from you, because you're not alone. We hear a lot more about the person undergoing gender transition. That's kind of the big, that's the big news. But the families and loved ones and friends who are impacted by that, we don't get as much airtime. And yet it's a big transition for us as well. So welcome to reach out. Let me know how you're going, and wishing you ease with impermanence.